Today's video is brought to you by creativesdothis.com.
My girl. How was this happening?
It was supposed to be the best week of their lives. A graduation trip to Myrtle Beach, sun, laughter, one last memory before adulthood. But by the time the sun rose over the Atlantic on June 7th, 2023, one member of the group would never wake up again.
911, what side is the emergency?
Hi, my name is Addison, and I'm out in Myrtle Beach right now for our senior trip. And our friend is passed out on the floor right now, and she's ice cold, and she's very blue.
Natalie Martin was found unresponsive inside the rented condo. She was still in the same outfit that she'd worn to the concert the night before. Her friends called for help, and they tried to do everything that they could. But it was already far too late. At first, nobody knew what had happened. There was no break-in. There was no stranger at the door. And, confusingly, the person who should have called for help first was now sitting silently nearby. That person was in the same room, injured but otherwise alive and well. He kept repeating one line again and again: "Natalie's not waking up." Police arrived just after 9 a.m. Why all of this happened though? That story began long before that morning. Seemingly small decisions can sometimes snowball. They can grow far beyond the parts that are gathered along the way before it reaches that devastating moment of impact. Let's take this one right back to the start. Here we go. By the way, this is Dark Case, and you can call me Jack. I bring you rare and unseen true crime cases, as well as other things that you may later regret knowing, with multiple uploads every single week. So if all of that sounds like your kind of thing, then make sure you join the Dark Case family now by hitting subscribe and turning all notifications on. And now for today's silly little question. If you found a diary in the street and it had loads of warnings on it saying "do not open, do not read, top secret," would you open it? Would you read it? And would you learn those secrets? Let me know down in the comments. All of your support over on Patreon, as well as right here via channel memberships on YouTube, are so appreciated. And I really can't thank you all enough. However, of course, thank you. And now, on with the video. Before Myrtle Beach, in the events of this video, there was just Natalie, an 18-year-old girl from Roseville, Ohio, who loved the outdoors more than anything. She hunted and fished. She wrangled snakes for fun, and her friends said that she could field dresser deer better than most grown men around her. But the people that knew her best, they say that she was just as gentle as she was fearless. She worked at a daycare, she loved kids, and when she smiled, people listened, leaned in, and smiled too. Her best friend Brooklyn said she could pull you out of your darkest day just by laughing. To the outside world, Natalie's life looked full, but quietly, behind all the smiles, she had been struggling with something that she couldn't quite fix: her relationship with Blake Linkous. They'd met back in high school, just two Ohio kids, small-town teenagers growing up together. He played football and wrestled. She played softball and soccer. To everyone around them, they looked like the perfect couple. But as the months went on, Natalie's friends started to notice something. Blake wasn't just protective, it went far beyond that. He was possessive. He didn't like it when Natalie hung out with other guys. He didn't like it when she didn't text back fast enough. And more than once, he accused her of cheating, even though there was no evidence that she had. Still though, Natalie believed that he could change. She always believed in people in that way. But by their senior year, even she couldn't ignore the red flags. In March of 2023, there was a pushing incident. It was serious enough that Natalie now broke up with him, but that doesn't mean that Blake would let go. He called her, he texted her, he begged her, and then he started to threaten her. One of his messages said, "If you hate me so much, I just want you to find someone else so I can beat their expletive and feel better about it." That was on May the 5th, just 1 month before the trip. Natalie tried to brush it off, thinking he was just upset. However, her friends would later say that that text message terrified them. They said that Blake wasn't the kind of guy who just made empty threats. When graduation finally came, the entire class of Philo High School was ready to celebrate. The Myrtle Beach trip had been planned for months. One last hurrah before college, jobs, and whatever came next. One last shot at true freedom. And even though she and Blake were broken up, Natalie still agreed to go. Of course, their friends were going too, and she didn't want their drama to ruin it for everyone else. She told best friend Brooklyn, "We're fine, we're going as friends." But that wasn't exactly true. On the drive down, there were arguments, small things that kept on escalating. Blake was drinking, and he was still asking Natalie who she'd been talking to back home. At first, the others laughed it off, but as one classmate later told the police, something just felt off about him. This video is sponsored by Creatives Do This, a platform that I've helped to launch that features real interviews with real artists, candle makers, musicians, and creatives of all kinds who are making it work. Right now, we're looking for creatives to feature. So if you've made money from your creativity, whether it's a full-time career or a new side hustle, and you want to share how you did it, we'd love to hear your story. It's just a short text-based interview and it takes around 10 minutes. And in return, you get free lifetime access to everything that the platform becomes. Plus, your work will get featured to inspire others and to build your brand. Hit the link in the description or the pinned comment to take the quick interview and to become one of the 100 founding members. There's now less than 50 spaces left. www.creativesdothis.com. And so they arrived in Myrtle Beach on the first week of June. The weather was perfect, the air smelled like sea and sunscreen, and for a brief moment, everything seemed okay. The group went to the beach, they took pictures, and they even joked that they were finally free. But just under the surface, Blake was unraveling. He saw Natalie smiling, laughing, and texting, and he knew that it wasn't him that she was sending those messages to. On the night of June the 6th, the group went out to the House of Blues for a concert. It was the kind of night that every senior dreams of. Loud music, bright lights, and no parents in sight. But by 10 p.m, Natalie said that she wasn't feeling too well. She wanted to head back to the condo early. Blake offered to walk her, and another friend came along too. Nobody knew it then, but Natalie wouldn't see the sunrise of the next day. As the night went on, the rest of the group trickled back into the holiday home. The lights were off, the bedroom door was locked, and even though some of the friends knocked, they received no answer. After Blake walked Natalie back and they arrived in the room, he realised that she was texting another guy. It was just a friend who lived locally, and in an instant, the jealousy that had been simmering for months, it finally boiled over. They argued, he accused her of cheating, and she told him once again that they weren't together anymore and that they'd already agreed to move on. But Blake couldn't accept that. He told her that he couldn't live without her, and because of the situation, he'd already made one attempt on himself. Natalie tried and tried to calm him down, but nothing worked. And what happened next would take only minutes, but it would haunt two families, two entire communities, forever. At around 10:17 p.m, Natalie's phone went dark. No more messages, no more calls. And then at 11:02 p.m, Blake sent a text message to his father. It read, "I got mad and screwed up. I love you guys forever. I really don't want to do this, but I have to." When the rest of the group came back later that night, they realised that the condo was quiet, but weirdly too quiet. They knocked on the bedroom door. There was no answer. They knocked again and then tried the handle, but it wouldn't turn. They assumed that Natalie and Blake were asleep, that they wanted privacy, or maybe that they'd gone out once again. Nobody wanted to make it awkward, so they just left it alone. But inside that locked room, Blake sat in silence for hours. At some point, he jabbed himself in the chest, although this only left shallow markings. The night passed, and then at around 9 a.m, Blake opened the bedroom door. He was covered in red, he was shaking, and he said the same phrase again and again, "Natalie's not waking up." His friends rushed in, and there they found her on the floor, motionless and cold. She was still in the clothes that she'd been in the night before. They tried CPR, but she was already gone.
911, what's the status of the emergency?
Hi, my name is Addison, and I'm out in Myrtle Beach right now for our senior trip. And our friend is passed out on the floor right now, and she's ice cold, and she's very blue. Her lips are blue, and she's
Okay, what's the
not
address?
moving
Where are
at
you
all.
at? Where are you at?
Where are we at?
Is this a place at the beach?
Yes.
Is she breathing? Is your friend breathing?
I do not think so. I really cannot tell. She is ice cold.
How long
And
has she been that
won't
way?
move. I don't know. Some of us just woke up.
Okay, I'm sending the paramedics to help you now. Stay on the line. I'll tell you
Okay.
exactly what to do next. I need to know how
Okay.
old she is.
She's 18.
Paramedics arrived minutes later, but by now it was far, far too late. Horry County Police arrived soon after, and that's when they discovered signs of a struggle, disarray, bruising and defensive wounds. They detained Blake immediately. When they asked him what happened, he said 5 words: "I killed my best friend." Unsurprisingly, within 24 hours, 18-year-old Blake Linkous was charged with murder. His mugshot was spread across every local news outlet. But to Natalie's family back in Ohio, none of it felt real. Her father, Jesse Martin, said that when he got the call, he was already on the road driving south to find his daughter. Her lack of contact was just not right. They knew something was very, very wrong. He thought that she might have been in hospital, but then the coroner called. He said he pulled over on the side of the highway and he just fell to his knees. We laid on the side of the road, flopping around, realizing we weren't going to see our little girl again. Back in South Carolina, police were processing evidence, and the autopsy now revealed that Natalie's time had been ended by a prolonged pressure to the neck. There were no illicit substances in her system, and so there was nobody and nothing else to blame but Blake. The murder shocked both communities, Myrtle Beach and small-town Ohio. Reporters camped outside the courthouse, friends held candlelight vigils, and for best friend Brooklyn, who had skipped the trip for a softball tournament, the guilt was unbearable. "I thought I knew Blake," she said later, obviously not well enough. She told police that she'd seen signs of DV before. The shoving, the threats, that she never believed he'd go this far. Within just days, Blake had confessed to everything. He told detectives that he and Natalie had argued over another boy. He said that he lost control, that he was drunk. However, those words did little to comfort anyone, and it certainly couldn't undo what was already done. At that point, justice seemed straightforward. After all, he had confessed. The evidence was clear. But what came next would leave Natalie's family furious. Because just weeks after his arrest, the court made a decision that no one in her hometown could understand. After his arrest, Blake was sent to the J. Reuben Long Detention Center in South Carolina. But within just a few weeks, a judge for some reason made a decision that stunned everyone. Blake was granted bond, $150,000. So for the price of a nice car, the man accused of doing this to Natalie Martin was now allowed to go home. And so he returned to Ohio, free on house arrest. He must have no contact with Natalie's family. He must have a GPS monitor on his ankle, but that's it. Father Jesse Martin couldn't believe it. He said, "The judge slammed the gavel, and for the price of a used SUV, your daughter's murderer can go home for the next 635 days. And so for nearly 2 years, Blake lived at home whilst awaiting trial. He ate his mum's cooking. He slept in his own bed. He drove around his small town, the very same one that Natalie's family still lived in. To them, every day felt like another injustice. Another reminder that the system didn't see Natalie's life as being equal to Blake's freedom in this open-shut case. The trial was scheduled for March 2025. Nearly 2 years passed and Natalie's family packed their bags before leaving for South Carolina, ready to face Blake in court. But on the morning the trial was set to begin, everything would change. Blake stood before Judge Deirdre Jefferson and he said 3 words: "I plead guilty." Those words meant no trial, no testimony, no cross-examinations. The courtroom filled with people from both families, Natalie's parents, her friends, and Blake's mother, father and sister, now all of them crying for different reasons. Chief Deputy Solicitor Scott Hickson read the evidence aloud. He described Blake as controlling, insecure and jealous. He said that Blake's own text messages told the whole story: the obsession, the rage, and finally, the confession. Defense attorney Francis Humphreys asked for leniency. He said that Blake was young. He said that he was on the autism spectrum. He argued that he'd been drinking and that he did now show remorse. But for Natalie's loved ones, those words fell flat. Her best friend Brooklyn stepped up to the stand. Her voice shook, but she didn't hesitate. 3.5 minutes, she said. That's how long it took him to take her life. 3.5 minutes he had to change his mind. Then Natalie's father spoke. He didn't read from notes and he didn't hold back. "There's nothing you could say here today that's going to make me feel better," he told the court. "But you owe the people of South Carolina the knowledge that the system has their back. Right now, from where I'm standing, it doesn't feel like that." He paused and then added something else that truly silenced the room. "If you all would let me smell his hair burn, that's what I'd want. That's what would make me happy." And that is pure grief. Raw, unbearable grief that turned into anger at the only person to blame in all of this. Judge Jefferson deliberated for over half an hour. When she returned, she spoke slowly. She said that the minimum sentence for murder was 30 years. But, in her words, under these circumstances, the minimum would not be appropriate. And so she sentenced Blake William Linkous to 45 years in prison without the possibility of parole. And so he could well spend the rest of his natural life in South Carolina's correctional system. Before he was led away, Blake addressed the court. His voice was low. "She was the love of my life," he said. "I swore to protect her, and I failed." He looked at Natalie's parents, but they didn't look back. Outside the courthouse, Father Jesse Martin said the sentence didn't bring peace. "There's no justice here," he told reporters, because justice would be having her back. Best friend Brooklyn said that she was grateful that they wouldn't have to sit through a trial, but that every time she closed her eyes, she still saw Natalie's smile, still heard her laugh. Back home in Ohio, hundreds gathered for a vigil. They lit candles. They wore her favourite colour, bright yellow, the same shade as her graduation gown. A GoFundMe campaign started by Brooklyn raised over $30,000 for funeral costs. Most of those donations came from strangers, people who had never even met Natalie, but were just touched by her story. Her obituary called her a free, pure and wild spirit. She was 18, and the people who loved her say that she never got to become who she was meant to be. If you drive through Duncan Falls today, you'll still see some yellow ribbons. You'll still see her name on posters at the softball field. And every June, people gather at sunset, all to remember Natalie Martin, but also to remind each other of something much bigger, that control is not love, that jealousy is not devotion, and that none of this had to happen. Be careful out there, and I'll see you soon.